expertise, and academic, historical expertise in the voting rights campaign. And so I would like to come across as this adroit, student of the movement, and as I have to look over here at Dr. Autry and Dr. Franklin, and Dr. Franklin some years ago, gosh, it must have been almost a decade. She said, she understood the movement and wanted us to look at the possibility of having the Interpretive Center on campus. And Dr. Autry, the chair at the time, Dr. Autry was the chair of the history department. She was my advisor as a master's student here, and we both said, oh no, we poo-pooed the idea, if that's a good term. And so Dr. Franklin insisted that we do some research and just to see if there was a historical connection between the university and the voting rights campaign. And what we came away with was not only was there a historical connection, but the evidence proved to us that Alabama State was the most appropriate place for this interpretive center. Right? And so the city of Montgomery, you had people open their homes and churches, you had people fixing food and organizing the logistics of the march, but in terms of advocating for voting rights, that involved Alabama State students. That involved those thousands of students who came down and gravitated around this institution and protested between here and the state capitol, here and City Hall. Here, there was 4,000 students walked up Jackson Street and to the county courthouse. And so the events that reverberated from Montgomery impacted this nation and helped to influence the passage of that legislation. So we are proud to be the home of the Interpretive Center. And so we're going to shift to, well, we're going to do question and answers. Okay, and then, well, one other thing. There's a gentleman, there's another set of footage that was donated to us by Randolph Ruff. And we're not able to show that footage now. We're going to show it in the future. But what is critical about that footage is it's shot, some of it is shot on campus. And so you see some of the demonstrations in 1965 that occurred on campus. And I would say some of his materials is as compelling as some of the stuff that we've seen today. And so we've shown you, I think, some important and dynamic footage, and we have more. So I just wanted to make mention of Randolph Ruff's contributions. And so I do want to allow a short question and answer period for any one of our three, targeted at any one of our three panelists. Mr. Winston and his daughter, Dr. Winston and his daughter, Mr. Hereford, or Mr. Kenneth Love. So I will interchange some questions. Yes?
I want to add this one to Mr. Hereford from Huntsville. When you make a comparison between Montgomery and Huntsville, now it seems that Montgomery was sort of the epicenter, if you will, but in terms of how whites reacted towards the marches, what kind of comparison do you make between the reception in Montgomery versus, say, Huntsville at that time?
That's a very interesting question. One thing about the way we did things in Huntsville, and I say we, I was only about 6 years old, so I wasn't involved in the planning, and so I did go on some poster walks and that sort of thing. But ours was by and large nonviolent, and consequently didn't make the news that much. And that was by design, because they did some things like, a lot of our protesters were college students also. Alabama A&M and Oakwood College, which is a Seventh-day Adventist college up in Huntsville. Now, these young men, they're in the physical primes of their lives, right? And when there's confrontation, some of them were looking for confrontation. But what we did, or what they did, the organizers, was the ones who seemed to be particularly hot-headed and so forth, they were given jobs like making signs for the march, that sort of a thing. And so consequently, we did not have a lot of violence, so we didn't get, you didn't see fire hoses and police dogs like you saw in Birmingham, or you didn't have problems such as they might have had here with confrontations and so on. So it was by and large pretty quiet, mostly uneventful. And there were a number of whites there who helped the cause, as I've seen some of the footage from Birmingham and some of the footage here. There were a number of whites who helped the cause. For example, back in the early 60s I'm talking about, there wasn't a realtor anywhere in Huntsville who would show a black family a home in a white neighborhood. But we had some whites, and they called them blockbusters, because if they knew a black family wanted to buy a house, they would buy the house, and then as soon as everything was settled, the white family, they turn around and sell it to the black family. You know, we also had some other whites who would impersonate some other people and call a store. I want to make sure, is everything open down there, you know, so that our protesters knew they could go down there and expect that store and that lunch counter to be open and that sort of thing. So it was pretty good cooperation, very little violence. We had a gentleman, a black gentleman who had come from North Carolina to help, and someone smeared some oil of mustard or something like that on his car seat. So of course when he sat on that, he got pretty badly burned, and you can imagine where he got burned. But there were some things like that. But as far as the big violent scenes, we didn't have that in Huntsville.
Another question for you, please.
Yes, please.
Moving from that end up to the politics,
Mm-hmm.
are you familiar with John Cashin? And first of all, are you familiar with John Cashin and the National Democratic Party at all?
Where my family's house is, okay, if you went across the street and 2 houses down, that was John Cashin's home.
And I figured you were familiar with him, and therefore you went from this protest over to politics. And could you just expound on John Cashin and some of the things that he did as well with your family, I'm sure?
Yeah, well, I don't know a lot of the details, but yes, he was very active. He was, now he was a dentist. In the program,
Absolutely.
it says that my father was a dentist. He was actually a physician, okay? But they worked, my father and Dr. Cashin worked closely together. And Dr. Cashin was more the politician. And of course did a lot of things, Alabama Democratic Party of Alabama, whatever was the proper name for that organization. My father mostly stayed away from the politics, but did a lot of the planning and coordinating and organizing and so on. But I'm afraid I don't know a lot of the details. I am very good friends with Cheryl Cashin, his daughter, who wrote the book, The Agitator's Daughter, and another book too, and I can't think of the name of that one, but in fact, I lived in D.C. about 3 years ago for a couple of years, and I visited Cheryl's home up on the north side of D.C. up there. She and I are good friends, and I know her brothers as well.
Thank you.
We're gonna shift. Do you want one more question?
So we did ask the 2 questions. I have one more question.
Sure.
Okay, if you don't mind. Dr. Winston, I heard so much about you when I was a little kid, and my mom used to talk about Dr. Winston all the time. But I do have a question. In the film, there was a lady who was 66, she was 61 years old, and she tried to register to vote 3 times. And I just want to know, what is it that, I've seen the film with Oprah when she went to try to vote. I've heard that you have to recite the Constitution or something like that when you go to the poll, but to register to vote. But I want to know if there's anybody here, and Dr. Winston, I know that you know, what exactly did you have to go through to register to vote?
I have a copy of the list of questions. You pretty much had to know what the questions that an immigrant who's applying for citizenship, they have to take. I have it. So if you want it, do you have it?
Actually, we have an exhibit on this floor, where an electronic exhibit where you could go in and take that. It's an application, but it's doubled as a literacy test. And so you had to answer 68 questions in order to qualify. 60. Yeah. Well, this particular test is 68 questions. 65 or 68.
and they would also ask you to recite part of the Constitution. And we had a little trick that we would go through. And we would go through, say, 7 years ago, our father. And they were classes, generally. One other thing, Mr. Herbert's father and my father were good friends, along with, what's called, another,
Dr. Cashin?
no, Senator Hereford and, yeah. So we were, I might mention that when the march started, just before that time, since you'll ask me to talk, we, Dr. Pryor, myself, and Dr. Underwood had just been admitted to the staff of St. Margaret's.
Dr. Underwood, that's the other doctor that my mother used to talk about all the time.
And I think we were admitted at that time because they knew the march was coming through. And they had a particular type of emergency room. Then the surgeon was placed on the emergency room list to rotate each night throughout the week. And it so happened that I was placed on the emergency room roster for the first time when the marchers were scheduled to leave St. Jude. We might mention professors were not without prejudice at that particular time at all because of the fact that we had tried several times, plus all the positions, to get on the staff. And we were not voted on the staff, we were placed on the staff as Sister St. Margaret, summarily. But as it goes, I think we gave a presentation relative to the climate at that time. We said, though we were placed on the emergency room call to take care of the trauma and the fights and things that might occur among us, it was a very peaceful march, and we were not called out a single time to see somebody who was in a fight or who was involved in trauma. I think Gwyneth asked me to take that off the tape.
I have to censor him sometimes.
Dr. Robinson?
Yes.
This is Kenneth Love. I have an appointment that I need to go to.
Okay.
So I'm going to say thank you.
Can we give Mr. Love a round of applause? Thank you so much for your presentation, and you know we'll be in touch.
Okay, yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
I heard some people mentioning having to recite part of the Constitution. What I've heard my father talk about was that at times you had to interpret a part of the Constitution to the satisfaction of the examiner. Okay, so you can imagine how even if you got it exactly right, you can imagine that sometimes you wouldn't pass something like that.
We're going to shift quickly and move into the second phase of our program, where we talk about, we provide an update on the Selma to Montgomery National Historic Trail on the Montgomery Interpretive Center here at Alabama State University. And to do that, we're first going to hear from site manager for the Selma to Montgomery National Historic Trail, Andrew Callens. Or in, okay.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson, and also thank you to ASU for inviting the National Park Service here today to be part of this program, and to also just have a few moments to talk to you a little bit more about the interpretive center that's going to be here at Alabama State. And so my name is Anthony Bates. I'm actually standing in for our acting site manager, Andrew Callens. He's actually dealing with another appointment at this time, and so I'll be filling in, give you an update. But this month has been a trying time, and I don't know how any of you feel, but I know one of my heroes actually passed away this month, and his name was Muhammad Ali. Some people might know this gentleman as Cassius Clay, but one of the most famous moments that people think of this gentleman is back in 1964, when he became the heavyweight champion of the world, where he was screaming, very happy, he shocked the world. And fortunately, a year later, in 1965, we had a 54-mile march where people, thousands of people, came to a place that people refer to as Little Old Alabama. 3 counties here in Little Old Alabama, where thousands of people came to march so that American citizens can have the equal opportunity to vote. And so, to speed up things, to kind of bring you to today's time a little bit more. In 1996, that same route was designated a National Historic Trail to commemorate those people, to commemorate the significance of the trail. In 2006, just 10 years later, we opened up our first interpretive center that was open, that is located in Whitehall, Lowndes County, Alabama. Now at this interpretive center, we have interpretive exhibits, we have rangers like myself who are able to be able to help you with learning the story if you're not familiar with it, to experience those moments that you as individuals went through, that moments that maybe your children, your parents, anyone who went through the voting rights movement, what they experienced. A few years later, we opened up a second interpretive center that is located in Dallas County in the city of Selma, where we are able to today focus on the events, the activities that took place in Dallas County. When we first opened up in Whitehall, that was our first interpretive center of 3 that we knew were going to be along the 54-mile route. And so from that location, we gave you bits and pieces, but we tried to give you an overall sense to what happened with that 1965 march and the voting rights movement as a whole. Which brings me a little bit more up to today, where we are all anticipating and looking forward for the Montgomery Interpretive Center to be located here in Montgomery County, especially here at Alabama State University. Now, with our story, the National Park Service, who administers the 54-mile trail, we are responsible for telling what happened between March 21st, 1965, and also what happened between, well, what happened on the final day, which was March 25th, 1965. 5 days and 4 nights. Now, you heard me mention about these other 2 interpretive centers that we have where we are telling you bits and pieces of that story. But here in Montgomery, we are looking forward to working with our partners at ASU, working with our partners, and also working with you, folks here in the community, the residents, those who went through the story, who went through the struggle. And we all still experience the need for equal voting rights for all American citizens. But we are hoping that we're going to be able to focus on the story from the city of St. Jude to the Capitol on Dexter Avenue. And so, just like in 1964 when Muhammad Ali shook up the world, hopefully in the next few years, maybe a little bit longer, and we hope that all of you will come back to Montgomery, to Lowndes County, and Dallas County, and come to see the trail finally finished, and we can all say that we shook the world together.
Our final presentation will be from the principal architect for the Interpretive Center. He's at the firm of Chambless and King Architects, Mr.
Thank you, and on behalf of Chambless King Architects, we appreciate this opportunity to participate in such a wonderful program that ASU set up today. And we are honored to be the architect of such an important building here on campus. We work with ASU on several buildings on campus, and John Chambless and myself both born and raised in Montgomery, so we have a lot of ties to the community, and we appreciate this opportunity. I'm going to keep my presentation kind of short, but I just want to kind of give you an update on the building, and those that have not seen the building, maybe kind of give you a view of what it is. This, of course, is a bird's eye view looking at the building. The building is located on Harris Way, and most of y'all might have gone by the construction site, kind of know where it is. But this is Harris Way, and this is University Drive. And if you're going across the interstate off the bridge, you're into the gate to the campus, and the Interpretive Center is located right here. So it's one of the first buildings you see. We think it's an important place for it too, because it's also across the street from the Abernathy House and Nat King Cole's house. So it's kind of becoming a cultural center, a focal point with people who come to visit and visit several venues and stuff. We have the Friendship Manor that's right up the street there. And then there's some buildings here that's not here now, but we always try to figure out what's going to happen in the future so that everything kind of works together. So we just kind of plotted some educational buildings, or there could be buildings that's, again, related to the civil rights movement and stuff. So that kind of gives you a feel where this is. Back here is the stadium, so it's out in front of the stadium in this picture. And And then this site over here is vacant and it will remain vacant, but, you know, again, there's a possibility of other developments that can tie all this together. Yeah, if we go to the next slide. This is the floor plan of it. The intersection of University Drive and Harris Way is at the top, and the entry to the building is kind of focused toward that intersection. So you enter from the top over a covered area, you come in the building, and the building is about 8,300 square feet. 70% of it is focused on the exhibition. It's open space so that the exhibition can be set up. So, and you see that there's a big primary exhibition space here, but there's also other areas where smaller exhibitions can be held. So, but the main focus is, again, is just to provide a palette for this exhibition to be displayed. So, the other 30% is an auditorium that hosts about 110 people. It's multi-purpose, so you can use it for different venues. And then the other is administration spaces you need, and of course, restrooms and stuff like that. Slide. And of course, this image that y'all have already seen, as you said, there'll be places for the bus to drop off visitors, and then the bus can go and park at the stadium, and then you call them and bring the pickup. If you come down, this is kind of the view again from the intersection. You see the main entrance into the Interpretive Center. The Interpretive Center is simulated stucco, and there's some natural wood to give it some warmth. And then this area right here is Alabama limestone, and there'll be sandblasted on the limestone the image of the march. And that should be something that really catches your eye when you drop down here. So it's, you know, it's a simple building, but again, I think our focus is on the exhibition itself inside, and then that image that you have of the march. Right now, if you go by the site, you see that the concrete floor slab's poured. The steel frame for the building should be here in a couple of weeks. And once the frame starts going up, it'll go pretty quick. The construction started mid-March, and a lot of work was done before even construction started, which already made it look like nothing was going on. But there's a lot of coordination beforehand and utility relocations and stuff. There was some major low line power posts here that we just knew the power posts had to get out of the way. You know, we just can't have these power posts. Alabama Power and the utility companies that work with us got those things relocated. So, but it's moving quickly, and you know, start of 2017 should be opening up.
So I think that we have concluded the presentations for today. I want to invite to the podium Dr. Janice Franklin, Dean of the Library, the Levi Watkins Learning Center, and the Project Director for the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture.
Thank you. I want to express my sincere appreciation to all of the program participants today. Would you please give them another love, and all of our participants who are here from the National Park Service, Space, and also Mr. King from Chambless Architects. This has been a program that really has exceeded our expectations. You know, when we talk about programs, we said let's have an opportunity for our collections to speak. And you know, we've always heard the old quote that says, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, moving images are the same, and it's just so wonderful to go into our archives and have an opportunity to plan a program that gives you a chance to see these outstanding collections. From the smallest to the largest film footage, the effect is just amazing. What we learn from those images, where these particular marches took place, some of the housing in that area, what it looked like at that time. So much information that comes to us in those moving images. There are a number of people here who were part of our vision team. We call them the vision team because they got together with us and helped us as we planned our interpretive center and as we talked about what needed to be involved. in this site. Those people who were part of the original vision team, would you please stand? I see Mr. Doug McCants in the back. Mr. McCants, I want you to stand anyway because he's one of our original marchers from ASU, one of the students who protested. Let's give him a round. And he was so instrumental with the Friends of the Trail and with working directly with us to make sure we got the story right. You know, there's so many stories of marchers at Alabama State University. Sometimes you start to confuse those occasions, but he authenticated that for us with Reverend Boone, and it was just a tremendous opportunity to have him working with us to guide us as we worked with the Park Service. So thank you so very much. Members of the Vision team who may have been able to be here with us, I know Mr. McCants was a member. If you are here, if not, we want to thank them. Who is that? Ms. Walker, who is site manager now at the Freedom Riders Museum. You were here as part of that, and Dr. Audrey, of course, and others. Thank you so much for your participation. I would also like to thank members of the steering committee who are here. The steering committee for the National Center, would you please stand and be recognized for your work, your outstanding work in planning this program. Reverend Mrs. Grass, of course. And you know, Reverend Grass was also in the march. Thank you so much. Are there other participants in the Selma Montgomery March who are here with us, who were actually participants in addition to Reverend Grass? Okay. Well, we're going to build more information around this story. We invite you to give us your collections if you have them. We're setting up what we're calling a Voting Rights Research Institute. And with that, we want to be a center so when people come to the site here, they can also do further research, learn about your relatives. We have other projects that we're planning, and it's just an exciting time. And we also invite you to make sure that you vote. I mean, part of our efforts include educating new voters here at Alabama State University. As they come to school here, we have over 5,000 students and an opportunity to work with them and make sure that they're knowledgeable of this story and how they need to continue to contribute. There's nothing more dangerous to democracy than ignorance. And I think that's, we have occasions to see that played out every day. We definitely want to encourage people to vote well. Thank you so much, all of you who've taken time to be with us today. We appreciate it.